What'd you think? Whoa! What are you doing? Now you're out here. What are you going to do? All right. So I'm going to bring out Matt from the Dirties. Matt, come on out. And Aaron, come on out as well. Yoo-hoo!
Sorry. We went out the wrong door. Sorry.
Come on out, Aaron.
Caius, you're out here with us too.
Caius decided to come out for the Q&A. He just followed Dad out. Now you're out here. Have a seat, man.
Okay, I have nothing to do with this movie, but I'm going to sit right here.
All right, you want to sit down, Dad? Oh, so I would open it up for questions, but I'm afraid I would never get the floor again. So
I can start with some questions.
Yeah, would you?
Yeah, so I've seen the film a few times. I work at another film festival that we also showed Matt's film. And I know that the first question most people have is they just sort of want to know how you came up with the idea, what the inspiration was for the film, just how not only the idea for the film, but the idea to tell the film in this way.
Yeah, that we do get asked that a lot. And if you guys are wondering, we shot this movie at the beginning of 2012, or end of 2011 is when we started shooting, and it came from a web show that we made, which was just a straight comedy. It was just like a comedy web series. And it was all improvised, and it was all very kind of ridiculous and sort of silly. And a friend of mine was watching a French film called Man Bites Dog, which is a great movie if you get a chance to see it. And it's a documentary about a serial killer, except it's done in a very realistic way and kind of in a lighthearted way. And he thought we should try to make that movie, like a movie about sort of somebody who'd lost their mind. And so we started exploring that. And the more we thought about me being like a crazy serial killer, we thought about putting that in the world of a school shooting. And then we started basing it on things that we learned about the Columbine shooting. And a lot of the stuff that you see is kind of recreations of stuff that Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, the Columbine guys, had done themselves, like home videos that they'd shot and things that they had gone through. So we started, the more we started basing it on that and using that as a reference, the closer we got to something that we felt was really representative of what our high school experience was like. So it was a long process, but it came from a web show, yeah.
And is there a lot of your own personal experiences in the characters? You know, you chose to have the characters share the same name as you and Owen and everything, and so clearly you're a big movie buff, and that, or at least you probably were in high school.
Huge.
Yeah, and so that's a part of the character, but were you also, did you or Owen or anyone else in the film experience bullying or any of that kind of stuff, or did you have to just...
At different levels, yeah. Owen, definitely, because Owen now is a high school English teacher. I'm from Toronto in Canada. I'm not an American. We're Canadians. And Owen went to a public school in a small town and suffered a lot of really vicious bullying that he brought to what we were doing. And a lot of the things that we would set up were things that he would be like, oh, you know what would really be weird? Like that thing at the beginning where that guy grabs my hand and won't let go. That was a story that had happened to Owen. And because now he is a high school English teacher, he would know, like when we would be in these school environments, he would kind of know things to do to trigger certain behaviors. So we did a lot of that too. But me specifically, I wasn't bullied much in high school because by then I was sort of more comfortable with myself and I had a good group of friends. But in middle school, a little bit. But I was able to empathize through Owen because I think he got it pretty bad.
You said something to me back in the green room just now that really blew me away. You said you shot this without a script.
Yeah.
You did it with about 25 note cards.
Yeah, cue cards. That's how we do everything. Like this movie I'm making now and the show that we made before, we would just write out on cue cards like the idea of what a scene should be, and we would go from that to the camera. So we never had lines, or we never had, like, we had a structure, like at the beginning of the film where we're trying to make this movie, and at the end of the film when Owen leaves, like we had that shape. But in terms of the individual scenes, we would just have like Jackman knocks Owen's meal tray down and they fight in the cafeteria. That's all we would have. And then we would just play around with that idea as much as we could. And we shot a lot because we shot it like a documentary. So we would shoot a scene, you know, for an hour, normally with 2 cameras, and then we would say, okay, it's done, and then with whatever footage we got, we would sort of construct a shape to it. And that's what we did with every cue card we'd have. We would go from the cue card to the set, shoot, and then just try to work it from that. And sometimes it didn't work. Sometimes we'd just be like, well, this scene just doesn't work, and so we throw it away.
Did you had you worked that way before? Is that how you did your web series?
Yeah, the web series was exactly the same way, except because the web show wasn't about anything. Like, it had no thematic depth whatsoever, and we weren't trying to get at any reality. It was a lot more lenient. Like, we could just do, like, it wouldn't matter if we didn't get a scene or if something didn't work out, we could just kind of make a joke out of it. So it didn't have the same gravity.
Do you think that sometimes it's easier to deal with traumatic situations like that with comedy as opposed to examining it and like absorbing it and experiencing it?
I think that's what people do, and I think a lot of what we were trying to do with this film is show young people coping with huge stress through comedy. That's why I think the beginning of the film is so real, because Owen and Matt are sort of one another's only real partners in this kind of traumatic world of high school that they're in, and they keep trying to make one another laugh purely because that's their coping mechanism. And then you'll notice as that gets taken away from them, like when they're not allowed to show their movie that they think is very funny to class, and when Owen no longer thinks Matt is funny, and all these tools are kind of taken away from them, and Matt has no way of expressing that anymore, is when things kind of get off the rails for him. So I think definitely humor is I mean, that's the way I think all of us deal with stress. I think it's actually a very healthy way to deal with stress.
I identified with that heavily in watching the film. I have a pretty tight group of friends that are, we don't really, our terms of endearment are some of the most vicious things you could say to one another, and that's kind of just how we relate to one another and how we communicate, because sometimes things are so messed up around you that's really your only tool. So that was one of the things that in watching the film that I really identified with, and I really appreciated about the film, because I felt like that was genuine, that I really understood that.
Yeah, normally Hollywood films don't get friendship right in that way, in my opinion. Like, normally you don't see like the way people really talk and what day-to-day living is really like for young people, and so we wanted to try to not correct that, but at least show our version of it, which we think is closer to what high school kids are really doing.
Was it difficult to strike a balance between the humor of the film, especially early in the film, and then the more serious subject matter that the story is tackling? Was that something you had to really work on in the editing or in the performance, or just...
Not really, because you know what's funny? It all takes place, I think, in the audience's head. In my opinion, like, my character behaves the exact same way at the beginning of the film as he does at the end. Like, he doesn't really change outwardly, but as the audience gets more information about what he's trying to do, I think that okay,
just like that, right there, yeah.
But you know what I mean by that? Like what really goes on is that the audience changes as the audience realizes that this character really is unbound and that he is sort of dangerous. Their perspective on me changes. Yeah. So
as the audience gets more information.
Yeah, as they get more information, it gets crazier.
Should we open it up to the audience? Speaking of audience, are there any questions out there from the floor? Does anyone?
Hi, I was just curious about the ending, why you chose to end it the way you did.
Yes. You mean, why did we end it that way?
Why?
I'll tell you that line, that last line that I say where I say, "Oh, and it's me," that was the only line that we had written in the entire movie. It was the only thing that we knew for sure we were going to do. And the reason we end it there is because that really is the end of their story. That's the end of, because the story is about this friendship between Owen and Matt. And that moment where you, for the first time, totally see the disconnection between the two of them, literally is the end of their story. Like Owen is now totally disconnected from Matt, and Matt is completely disconnected from reality. And so there's nowhere else for the story to go. I mean, we could have kept rolling and tried to explore what, Matt going to jail is like, or what Owen's reaction to all of this is, but nothing really important happens after that realization is made by Owen, because that's really what it's about Owen realizing that this entire time his friend has completely changed in a way that he didn't realize was possible. But do you mean why we chose to end it violently? Is that what you mean? Is he going to shoot Owen? I get asked that a lot, and no, I think that's crazy. He would never shoot Owen because he loves Owen. It's easy to think that he's lost his mind, but in my opinion, he hasn't gone completely crazy. It's just his version of reality is shifted away from what Owen's is. So Owen is still his best friend, and he loves Owen almost in a beyond what's healthy way. So no,
He's shocked that Owen is even running away from him.
Right.
at that
I
point,
think
right?
that's the thing. I think he thinks Owen is like with this. Like he's doing this with Owen. I mean, like he in his mind, I think he actually believes Owen is like with him on this, and this is like their master plan. And this is just Owen's carrying it out with him. And
yeah, and so when Owen is so disturbed by him, he's trying to reassure him.
Yeah,
like he thinks that maybe Owen doesn't think that it physically is him, which I think is so funny that he's saying, "Owen, no, it's me. Maybe you don't recognize me because I haven't seen you in a week." But exactly, which is another key point that I mean, the other argument there is that he had the shirts printed before Owen pieced on him, but your point is dead on, that in his mind, well, no, I guess not, because you thought he was going to kill him. But yeah. Well, it's too late now. You couldn't talk him back. I don't think Owen realized that, just like Matt's mother didn't realize that anything was wrong. He thought this was just Matt being funny again, and it was that at the end where he's like, I thought it was all a joke, MJ.
Are there other questions?
At the back?
In the back.
For starters, wow, that's loud. Phenomenal film. It's phenomenal.
Thank you.
The performances across the board they're great.
That's a trick.
Completely natural.
Yeah, but that's really a trick. I think that what you're seeing is just very, very small pieces of much larger performances that are not as strong. And I don't mean that to mean that the actors weren't good or that they weren't professional or that we didn't like spend a lot of time on set getting them right. What I mean is that we shot so much, because this was basically shot like a documentary, that we really got to pick and choose only the most realistic moments that people gave us. So, and that's across the board. Like the bullies, the teacher, me, Owen, like we were shooting at maybe a 100-to-1 ratio, maybe even closer to 200-to-1.
Really?
Yes. And with 2 cameras rolling all the time. So we were able to only pick the most realistic moments. And even beyond that, a lot of the people in the movie don't even know they're in a movie. So there are a lot of moments where we'd be acting with people in real high schools or at real parties or just in the street where they had no idea there were cameras rolling, and they had no idea that, well, they just knew nothing. They just thought that we were kids talking with them. And so sometimes that's also a part of the trick, where their performances are not even performances, they're just being themselves. And we were able to use that footage for the film as well.
Well, you did a great job, because whatever you did to mine great moments, I mean, there wasn't a false moment in the whole thing. It's great.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's something that I really care about, that this idea of, because I think the biggest problem with independent filmmaking, and I mean, have you guys seen like a lot of the movies that have played here so far? Like I think the ideas always are amazing. Independent filmmakers always have the best ideas. And the big struggle, you probably can agree with this too, the struggle is always getting performances right. Like, because 1 or 2 bad performances will just destroy a movie. And even with the best intentions and the best script, the best everything, like 1 or 2 bad moments can just turn audiences off or let people know that it's not real. And as soon as you're reminded of the construction of art, I think it really destroys a lot of what it's trying to do. And so first and foremost, we wanted to get performances that were great, and all that meant is that we shot a ton. And that's something we learned on the web show that we made, because that's a lesson you learn really quickly, because you shoot enough and you edit enough and you realize, oh, hey, I can take out all these bad moments because I have so much to work with. So we just tried to apply that to this feature. You had a question up there.
hold 1 second.
Oh, they'll bring you a microphone.
Actually, I had a comment. After watching the entire thing, from the beginning, by the end of it, like seeing him prep and set up the cameras and everything, I started getting a nervous feeling in my stomach where
So
it
do
was
I.
like, where you kind of wish that he would back out of his plan.
Yeah.
And knowing that he's not, and seeing it happen, it was so psychologically well done that it works perfectly.
You fell for the characters, man. They really brought it, and they brought it real, and you fell for it. That's a really that's
I have that same feeling, specifically the moment that you're talking about where I'm setting up those GoPro cameras on the wall. That always makes me sick to watch. I always feel totally sick to my stomach. I'm like, oh my God. And it works even on me, which is strange because I was there and I know it's all fake. But there's something about that where, you see this person as such a happy-go-lucky, relaxed guy, for him to then, like the commitment of it for some reason and the inevitability of it makes me feel really, really awful. Like I completely connect with what you're saying.
I think a lot of that has to do also with the fact that stuff really is real.
Right.
And that we've been exposed to it, and the media has exposed us to that so deeply, and we've had things like Columbine and the recent shootings, and like, I think that may have something to do with that, because you hate for that moment to come, that breaking point for any kid, and all of us, I think, as growing up as children, have felt pressure or been bullied in one way or another, and I agree as well. Like you're like, wow, he is past the point of no return, and there's no saving him.
And yeah, and you don't want the party to end. I think that's a part of it too. You're like, oh, like it could have gone so good for you. You had such a good attitude, but yeah, then he takes a wrong turn.
Are there other questions? See one in the back there.
You guys, you can ask me about anything too. Sorry, he's shocked. That's right. That's Walter. I'm staying at his house, and I warned him that when he saw this movie, he would probably be afraid to hang out with me. I say that to a lot of people who come to see this movie, and it's the reason that I never introduced the movie at the beginning, because I think knowing that I'm just sort of like a regular kid or whatever, I think really changes the viewing of it. So it must have been very different for him, because I slept at his house last night, literally in his living room. So
We're gonna die.
yeah. Although I don't think, it's funny, I think even if Matt were a real guy and you met him, I don't think you would be afraid of him, because he's got a plan. You're not in his plan, like you didn't do anything to him. He's trying to do something. Yeah. So he's scary if you're a part of his master plan, but if not, you probably just ignore him and think, oh well, what a weird kid. Yeah, don't beat him up or anything. Yes.
We got a question.
Say that again. The origin of the title, The Dirties. Well, it came from two things. One is that I went to a Christian camp for a long time in Canada, and that was like a slang term that got used at this camp for like the kids who would like smoke drugs or drink at the camp. It wasn't my term, but it was a
Did you just say smoke drugs?
smoke drugs. Yeah, that's what people say in Canada.
That's a really weird group of words.
So that was a slang term at that Christian camp that got used a lot, and then on set, I don't know why, but I think that was the title that we came up with for the movie that the kids were going to make in the movie, and then it just sort of grew out of that. And that was not actually the original title for the film, but as we kept making it, we just decided that would be the big title. Why do you ask? That's weird. I've never. Oh, okay. So thematically you're wondering. Yes, you're 100% right. So his question was less about like the actual phonetics of the word, like why dirties, but like why that's important. And you're 100% right that Matt becomes what he ostensibly created, and that was definitely the plan, was to make him into this guy. And there's a few key moments in the film where he actually gets called the Dirties offhandedly. So when Owen gets hit with that rock, as those kids run away, they're calling them the Dirties, which is silly. I mean, they're just calling them that because they made that movie, right? They made a movie called The Dirties, so like to make fun of them, they're getting called the Dirties. And then later on, somebody calls them the Dirties again because they made this movie, which is funny because Matt, in the movie that they make for school, him and Owen act as the Dirties. So we did a lot of that, like them playing the victimizers and the victims and then becoming the victimizers. And like we wanted to play around with that a lot. So yes, it was you got it dead on. I'm sorry I took your question as so simplistic originally. Yeah, but that's 100% right, that they become the Dirties. And that's why, like, they sort of are the stars, like, because you would call the movie sort of Matt and Owen if you weren't thinking, right? It's like the Matt and Owen movie, but really it's about them kind of becoming what destroys them, which I thought was really cool.
Are there more questions?
Yes. That's something that we did a lot on our web show. In Nirvana the Band, the show, we did it all the time. And it's something I'm obsessed with, like repurposing popular culture for whatever. And in this movie, it just made so much sense to take like all the movies that these guys were obsessed with and use them as the closing credits. And also like as a plot moment where you can show these are the credits that Matt made for the end of his movie because he thought they were going to be so cool, but really they have like quite a sickening effect, I think, on audiences where you're like, oh man, like where you just see all that culture except in the context of a kid who's really lost his mind. So that's why that was quite an early idea, but it comes from a long, like I've been doing that for a long time. I'm obsessed with that stuff. I think that stuff's so amazing, especially with title and the graphical side of title. I really, really like that stuff. I'm surprised nobody wanted to know about the guns or anything like that.
Welcome to Texas.
Yeah.
So,
We love our guns.
so I guess just in closing, just really fast, you know, the film premiered at Slam Dance just in January, which is where I worked just a few months ago. And I know it's just since that time, a lot has happened with the film. And do you want to just quickly tell us sort of where it's at, when it's going to be available for people to see, and just what the story is?
We were lucky enough to win like the big award at Slam Dance, which is an amazing film festival that plays with Sundance at the same time in Park City. And we won a great award there, and that wound up catapulting the film into getting a lot of attention in Los Angeles, and then we were able to get a really great distribution deal from it. So you'll be able to see the movie, maybe not in Victoria. I wonder if they probably won't open it nearby, but they're opening it in like some major cities, and you'll be able to download it on VOD in the fall. So I think in October or November. And we're playing a whole bunch of film festivals up until then. Like we're about to play Dallas in a few days, and Sarasota. We're playing tons. So if you wanted to, you'll be able to see it again. It'll be released on DVD too.
Where else has it played besides Slam Dance?
This is the next. We've played at a bunch of universities.
What did you just say?
This is the first place we've played since Slam Dance.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, this is a great film festival. Yeah, and we were all really stoked to bring the film here because I mean, because Dallas International is a really big festival, we thought if we screen it here, we'll be screening it to sort of like real people who would never get a chance to see a movie like this. And I'm amazed that you guys responded well to it because I know it is a difficult film to watch, even formally, like a lot of weird things are happening in it. But we were happy to. But between Slam Dance and here, like we've just been screening at universities, and we'll continue to do that throughout the United States. But otherwise, no, this is our next big festival, and we're happy to be here again. Thank you. Thank you, Anthony.
Love having you, Matt. Thanks.
And thank you guys for coming. If you guys have any other questions, I'll be out in the lobby for a while, and I'm happy to talk.